Conan's new Purge has already proved troublesome for some people. The early levels aren't too bad, but I've read a lot of people saying how challenging it's been, and how much they've enjoyed it thus far. However, what if I were to tell you that it's going to get even harder? The Purge gets its final major change that we know of in the Age of War Chapter 3. They'll finally get access to siege machines, namely Trebuchets, and they'll be able to pelt down boulders on your base. However, we already know about the Trebuchets. What if I told you there were other things coming? There I am, just doing some of my challenges in single player mode, when I go to spawn in some Purge enemies. What is that? What is that? Well, it looks like Golems will be joining the Purge in Chapter 3. These Golems, when you spawn them, currently manifest as Iron Golems with any of the usual weapons. However, they are marked in the admin panel as Purge Siege Golem Explosive. They don't currently have an explosive head, so I'm guessing they're not finished yet. However, if they are the standard explosive headed golem that we can craft, that's going to make things a bit sticky. One pretty consistent strategy I've had in the Purge is to lure them into a choke point and basically just get to swinging, but if there's explosive golems buried in that horde, the choke point could quickly become a gaping hole in your base. It'll be very interesting to see how these things play out. I think explosive golems could probably cause a big shift in the power dynamics of the Purge, similarly to how you have to prioritise demolishers. I don't really expect to see explosive golems in the earlier Purge waves, but around 5 or 6 I wouldn't be surprised they begin to show up then, as they can be felled very quickly with star metal weapons. The second thing I found was the Siege Trebuchet Technicians. These guys spawn in as fighter class relic hunters with 420 health. They carry a single Stygian Khopesh, but of course I don't think they're intended as a frontline fighter. Rather, these will be the people manning the trebuchets in Chapter 3. They don't spawn with anything Treb related, nor do they drop loot on death that would have any indications of how the Trebs will perform. However, something interesting I found was that these enemies, at least in their current state, can be knocked out and enthralled. They currently behave as regular fighter thralls, however, I have a little theory. Assuming that it's intentional that we can enthrall these engineers, maybe they can man our trebuchets. This might not be so useful for base defense, but the PvE siege is coming in Chapter 3, and I presume our trebs will be pretty useful. What if we have to set up our own forward operating base, sight in the trebuchets, and then slot these thralls in to fire the payload every, 20 or 30 seconds, or even better, on command? I know there's probably some big PvP concerns there, but as a concept I think it's not impossible. I did also test some other Purge NPCs and I was able to enthrall them as well, which is kinda weird because I could swear this was never an option before. It's kinda hard to draw a conclusion of where these technicians will end up and how they'll perform, but given their pretty low health pool, I'm guessing they're designed to be quick and easy to kill if you can land some shots on them or some Hail Mary arrows from a distance. The third interesting thing was the snakes. These are found under the name Purge Snake Charm Snake with 2 variants. These are fairly large serpents but not massive, coming in at 535 health. You may remember from the Age of War Chapter 1 trailer that the video finished with a shot of an enormous snake attacking a base. I actually couldn't find that snake in the admin panel, so it might not be in yet, or it might be under a name that I haven't found, but I have found these snakes. Now I haven't actually seen serpents show up in any Purge yet, and I do believe Dennis said in the Chapter 2 stream that beasts were not currently a thing, but could be in the future, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see Stygian Beastmasters sending snakes into battle. Stygia is a highly religious culture based around the serpent god Set, and who better to aid in battle than the children of the Chaos Serpent himself. Ironically, I wouldn't be surprised these snakes begin to show up at fairly low level Purges. At 535 health they don't seem terribly strong. They're not actually currently damage enabled, so I can't really see how much damage they'll do, but I don't imagine it would be too much. Of course, if they deal poison damage, that could add an interesting dynamic and a bit more pressure to the lower level Purges. I would love to see that enormous serpent from the trailer in the late game Purges, and I do kinda hope that wasn't just a cinematic shot to close the trailer, and actually something we can realistically expect. I'm honestly 50-50 on how likely it is that we see those giant Avatar-esque snakes, but for now it seems smaller, albeit still sizable snakes will indeed be slithering into Chapter 3. Alongside these 3 main things, I did some digging through the Purge tag in the admin panel and found some other things that may not necessarily be revolutionary, but will change up the Purge to varying degrees. In the admin panel I found a bunch of enemies that I haven't seen in current Purge waves. This includes Beast Tamers, Lemurians, and even Sorcerers. It's kind of hard to distinguish which enemies relate to the new Purge and which relate to the old, or if indeed they all relate to the new Purge and I've just not seen some of them yet. Judging by the few categories that seem clearly related to the Stygian Purge alone, it does seem we'll be getting a bit more variety in the future. Probably the most interesting of the group to me are Sorcerers. I'm not really interested in seeing them as frontline fighters, but as a support class similar to the Demolishers or potentially the Trebuchet Engineers, I think Sorcerers could be very interesting. The Golems are a pretty safe bet, but I think having an enemy Sorcerer on the field that can send out Golems or summon demons, or even cast large spells like Lightning Storm, Darkness or Undead Fog could be very interesting, and it creates another one of those instances where that NPC becomes a high priority target. I really like what they've done thus far with the importance dynamic of dealing with Demolishers early, and I think there's a potential to recreate that dynamic with Engineers and Sorcerers. Demolishers are sometimes a little too plentiful, so in the future if they replace some of those Demolishers with support classes like the Engineers or the Sorcerers, I think that would be a very good route to go down. I did also spot a bunch of Purge tagged monsters from Siptar like the Blood Moon Beasts, the Migo, the Shagai, etc. I'm not too sure if these will actually show up in the Stygian Purge or if they're holdovers from the Purges on Siptar before. To be honest, I'd be interested to see them come into high level Purges. The door is kind of already ajar, seeing as some of the new dungeon changes have introduced enemies from Siptar. If it means more variety and possibly even Purges that go above tier 10 in difficulty, I am all for it. Siptar's got a bunch of cool monsters, and if they can walk alongside the Stygian army to attack our base, I think that really sells how powerful Stygia is. That being said, we've still got a good while to go until the Age of War Chapter 3, so we'll have to wait and see for certain how these features manifest. Thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Chapter 2 has been really fun so far, and if these discoveries are anything to go by, I think Chapter 3 could really step up the ante and make those high level purges even more difficult, which I'm always interested in. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.